Hello everybody, today I've got all of my taekwondo pictures out and probably most of my martial arts pictures except for some of the big ones that I've got tucked away. Now, this is my education. These are my credentials. See, I've got my second degree black belt in taekwondo. I've got my second degree black belt in Shaolin Do. And so, before I go through all this, I'd like to tell you what has brought me to need to fight now. There we go. Now, before I left Michigan, I had already been experiencing that my dad has a bad temper, and my mom and dad have been fighting like cats and dogs ever since before I was born. And before we left Michigan, I was also experiencing being bullied by the neighborhood kids, and so we left for Florida a little late in the school year. So when we got to the Florida Keys, I was the new kid, and so of course new kids are always put to the test, right? Well, with all the stuff going on at home and everything, I was really super sensitive, so it was easy to trigger me and get me to either cry or lash out. And so it just seemed like I was always being singled out at the bus station, at the bus stop, and all through school. Now, funny thing is the very first fist fight I can remember was with my little boyfriend Billy. Now, I thought I would share real quickly. This is Billy. I've done a whole bunch of videos about this in the Jody Vision. So if you want to look up Billy, he's a real person. That's Bill Lieb of Frontline Assembly, you guys. I think this is a colorful part of my story because I was going into visionary state, which is where you have a very vivid hallucination that is just like reality. And so anyways, this was supposed to be somebody who I'm supposed to grow up and marry, and the reason we got in a fight is I said that I will never marry you, and he came swinging at me going, no! And in that moment, I realized, I don't want to end up in a relationship like my parents where the husband beats up the wife, and I think that this fight was probably one to prepare me for many of the other ones to come. So what I did was I came back Billy the same way he came at me, and I felt like I was kind of winning the fight because it backed him off, right? So anyways, that probably helped give me the confidence I needed for the very next fight that I would have. So in first grade, there was this little kid named JP. Now, he was just a kindergartner, but really wanted to impress all the other kids there, by picking on me. So if you've ever watched the South Park, the character Pip, I was a little bit like that character in this case. And so anyways, JP was he would come at me every morning, and this time he was walking me down, yelling right in my face. So I came at him the same way I came at Billy, so this is my first real fist fight, and again with a boy. And so it seemed like I won that fight, except that he went home and got his mom. So she stopped us before the school bus left, and she stood up in the front of the school bus and lectured me on how I shouldn't have beat up her innocent little son that didn't do anything wrong. And this has always been the case with me all through school, where if kids pushed me to fight, I'd be the only one to get in trouble, right? And so I was constantly being made to react or whatever. And so the guidance counselor there, Mrs. Reed, was getting to know me quite well for that matter. Now, there's a couple of fights where I did lose to kids who were learning karate. So in second grade, I had this friend that I thought was my friend till she turned on me, and on the playground she was coming at me with insults, and I went to hit her like I did JP, and she hit me right in the solar plexus with a good front kick, and I went down shaking. And nobody came to my defense, that she did not get in any trouble or anything. And then the next time I got in a fight like this was with Juan in third grade at the bus stop. So he was putting me down, and I came at him like this, and he was stepping away, and the other kids were like, oh, she fights like a guy. And then he nailed me right in the solar plexus, and I remember holding that and going, ow, 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 like I was almost trying to make light of it, but it hurt really bad. So these kids did make me aware of karate before I saw Karate Kid, of course, which was another thing I would like to think has probably motivated a lot of kids to seek out karate lessons, right? So the other thing that was going on in my life was I had this little friend named Kenny. So in first grade, I was a year older than most kids, but then he was a year older than me. So I was a little bit different. He was also a little bit different because he was Cuban and a little bit too old. So we made friends and we liked to play together. But his mom did not want us to be friends because she was afraid he would grow up to marry a white girl. So he let me know that. And then one day I saw her driving along and I was just about to drop kick a soda can laying on the ground. And when she came along and gave me a dirty look and said something, I went ahead and carried it. But then she took it personally and she whipped her car in front of me and she's like, "Did you kick that can at me?" In fact, Ken even mentioned that she was really mad at me because she thought I was gesturing as if I'd like to do that to her, right? So I was about 8 years old when her 14-year-old daughter Isabel chased me down, so I got winded and collapsed, and she just came up and kicked the crap out of me. Um, no real harm done, but it was very humiliating. And then later on, so Kenny invited me to the house to see his imaginary pet macaw, and that's what he did to trick me into coming in. And they told me, well, if I want to see the bird, and I really loved birds and I really wanted to see it and pet it, and they said I'd have to wipe my ass clean. And so I went into the bathroom and just took a pee, and then I came out. And so his 18-year-old brother was standing there with a rifle pointed at me, and he ordered me to drop my pants and put my hands in the air. They told me never come back here again and don't tell anybody or they will kill me. So after that, I still talked to Kenny. It never came between us, but his mom really hated me. So meanwhile, with elementary school, it seemed like, anytime I got in a fight, it seemed like I would always be the one to get in trouble and the other student would get off scot-free, even though, for example, I remember like third grade, Sherry and Megan were stopping me from leaving the bathroom, so a lot of times girls would like to scrap in the bathroom to achieve what you call pecking order, right? And so they were gonna, I don't know, I was kind of intimidated actually. And the funny thing is, even though I didn't have any martial arts training, I knew to step back with one foot in front of the other, and I used my hidden hand to hit her in the face. Now, I didn't want to hit her right in the nose and the mouth. I thought if I hit her in the blank part of her face would be better, but I wanted to hit her nice and hard. So I did. I hit her right where I wanted it, and she dropped down, and she held her face, and she went and got the teacher, and I got a lecture, but I didn't get like any real punishment, but it made me feel like I was the only person responsible, like I shouldn't have done that no matter what, so that's the type of advice you'd get from grown-ups, right? And then there was another girl who I can't think of her name, but she said her dad was teaching Kempo and she was learning it from him. Well, we were waiting in line in PE class, and I stepped out of line because somebody looked like they dropped a scarf or something, and I just wanted to go say hey, and so I went to get back in line. She wanted to order me to the back of line because now I had lost my place in line, and I thought this was one of my buddies. But then she started to attack my arm and like try to pinch me or something, and I was kind of intimidated in this case. So I hit her in the face, and she went and told on me. And again, it was as if she got no trouble for what she was doing, but I was the only one. And I don't know if I got in trouble or not. But again, every time I get in a fight, it seems like the teacher sides with the person who started it because I oftentimes win them, right? Now, there was this big kid named Jimmy who I thought was my buddy, and he came up alongside me yelling booger lips or something, and I jumped up and I hit him in the face. And this is where, I really started sensing remorse. Like I kind of felt bad, like it's so easy to hurt people, like when I had that fight with Billy. I remember one of the reasons I was crying so hard because not only did it seem like we were ending our friendship, but I thought I hurt him. So I do feel very remorseful for hurting people if I do get in fights, including Sherry, and that other girl, Kempo. Now, Nikki and Chucky ended up moving in across the street from our house, and I remember getting in a fight with Nikki over something stupid actually, and I grabbed her by the back of her neck and I went to throw her on the ground. Fortunately, she did a shoulder roll, but I remember feeling really bad, like what did I do that for? But then her big brother Chucky punished me for it. He wanted to be a good brother, and I think he got me in their yard. Like they had some small gravel on the yard. He like took me down with wrestling and pressed my face into that gravel, and I had red marks that were bleeding just a little bit, like because he really got me good. Now Chucky was actually my boyfriend for a little bit, and he used to teach us wrestling in the big yard. So there was this big grassy yard a couple lots over from our trailer. So this is kind of where I started thinking about getting into martial arts before I discovered Taekwondo. Now, most of the violence I've experienced in my life would be at home, particularly with my father. Anyway, so these are a number of the events that I could describe leading up to me getting into Taekwondo that motivated me to learn to fight. It seemed like my experience in life was, man, you need to learn to fight because everywhere you go, you know, people are against you. So yeah, so I thought I'd share this part of my life. Living there on Ed Swift Road for that portion of my life. That's before we left that trailer. That's when I joined Taekwondo. So that's why I thought I would share um, what motivated me to get all these black belts and stuff. So I'm gonna come back and do another video sharing what motivates me to train. Okay, until then, have a good day. Talk to you soon.